in the past, capital or personal economic merits were considered non-virtuous, exemplified by a picture of Jesus beating the devil out of bankers.
So, what changed?
Back in 16th century, there was King Philip II of Spain, the greatest supporter of militant Catholicism, and the Spanish Netherlands, which consisted of 17 provinces. Modern Netherlands and Belgium was one of the richest parts of Philip's empire. Philip attempted to strengthen his control in this important region. So basically, King Philip II ruled over his people with Catholic faith, which fueled his conquest through crusade attacks, and the Jews who were good at trading was not happy and decided to turn to a different branch of Christianity to preserve their wealth or properties, which is essentially power. The king was having none of that, and that made the Spanish Inquisition, aka religious police, who is able to confiscate the properties of any heretics, aka rich non-Catholic devoted people. The nobles of the Netherlands, who resented the loss of their privileges, strongly opposed Philip's efforts to make matters worse. Philip tried to crush Calvinism in the Netherlands. Violence erupted in 1566, while Calvinists, especially nobles who protect people from the Spanish Inquisition pillaging, began to destroy statues in Catholic churches, led by William of Orange I. The struggle dragged on until 1609. The northern provinces called themselves the Netherlands and became the core of the modern Dutch state. Philip's reign ended in 1598, and Spain is now effectively poor from all those wars. The armed forces were outdated and the government was inefficient. In 1648, the Dutch achieved victory, not only effectively ending the Dutch Revolution but putting an end to Spanish immersion in Dutch territory.
Started when King James I of England said, "God gave me this position." However, Parliament said no. The King or Queen and Parliament ruled England together. Religion was an issue as well. The Puritans, Protestant in England inspired by Calvinist idea, did not like the Catholic Church. With Charles I, who also believed in the divine right of kings like Catholic Church, because his legislation to power. In 1628, Parliament got sick of the king and passed a petition that prohibited the passing of any taxes without Parliament's consent. Complaints grew until England slipped into a civil war in 1642 between the supporters of the king and the parliamentary forces. Parliament won, thanks to Oliver Cromwell, who later also purged all the parliament and set up a military dictatorship for the glory of God, as he said. He died 9 years later, which led to the return of monarchy, ruled by Charles II. He tried to make England Catholic again, but the Parliament said no and forced him to back down. In 1685, James II became king. James was an open and devout Catholic, making religion once more a cause of conflict between king and Parliament. And there's the Glorious Revolution. A group of England noblemen invited the Dutch leader William Orange III, the heir of our beloved Netherlands revolutionists, husband of James II's daughter Mary, to invade England. He succeeded while James, his wife, and his infant son fled to France. The issue was not if there would be a monarchy, but who would be monarch. In January 1689, William and Mary accepted the throne, along with a Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights set forth Parliament's right to make laws and levy taxes, which created a system of government based on the rule of law and a freely elected Parliament. Parliament had destroyed the divine right theory of kingship. William was, after all, king by the grace of Parliament, not the grace of God. In the meantime, landlords and farmers are no longer evicted by the church. Production increased, industry were made, setting path for capitalism. So with all those freedom of speech and ideology from the past revolution, you would expect that the next revolution to be very progressive, right? Oh well. Before the revolution, French society was based on inequality. Population was divided, as it has been since the Middle Ages, to three orders or estates. The first estates consisted of the clergy, owned approximately 10% of the land. They were exempt from the taille, French chief tax. The second estate, the nobility, who possessed many privileges, including tax exemptions, owned about 25 to 30% of the land. The third estates, or the commoners of society, was divided by vast differences in occupation, level of education, and wealth. The peasants had little or no land, had obligations to their local landlords. The bourgeoisie, or middle class, was another part of the third estate. Members of the middle class were unhappy with the privileges held by nobles. Both groups, who were drawn by the Enlightenment, were increasingly upset with a monarchical system resting on the privileges and on an old rigid social order. Opposition of these elites to the old order ultimately led them to a drastic action against the monarchy. At the failed attempt to rid of social inequality through constitutional voting, the Third Estate decided to go all out and change France once and forever. It started off with a progressively movement led by a so-called National Assembly to the point where peasants became revolutionists armed with rifles and artillery, set out to abolish monarchs along with giving society a common ground through the Declaration of Rights of Man. This did not turn out too well for France when the same movement became a purge of anti-revolutionists, where thousands, both aristocratic and or normal people alike, had their head cut off while being at war with another monarch system like Prussia or Austria. Ironically, anarchy and chaos only ceased when a new kind of absolutism arose. Napoleon Bonaparte came along, defeated both Prussia and Austria, and was given the title of the first consul of France, meaning he now holds the ultimate executive power of France, making him all the more powerful compared to the past monarchs. Yet, his ideology is still under the original premise of France's revolution: equality of all citizens. So what did we learn today, apart from the fact that this revolution shares a common pattern? It is heavily involved or led by the upper classes. It is fighting for freedom in many factors, either it's religious or economically or individualism. But one singular pattern of this revolution is that one of the primary reasons where the religion side failed to uphold the influences is because either over petty squabbles or just progress of technology or economic itself has outgrown the church and its beliefs, and maybe the change is inevitable. So the obvious differences between these revolutions, it is form of progress. The Dutch fought for religious freedom from the Inquisition of Catholic Church. The England set up a parliamentary system, and while still keep monarchy in a system, make sure that the parliament and the king has a balance of power. And the French Revolution is just an overhaul where the whole country became sort of a republic, militant dictatorship where it is ran under a code of law. It is extremely intriguing for me to think about these people in the past who either fight for religion freedom, a better code of conduct, or a better economic system for their society, but little do they know that they are in an era of power transition where their own country and the form of power would outgrown itself in several factors like economy, ideology, politically, that they are able to control other country not just under the influence of a god or religion or a non-scientific belief, but the power of economy and culture and many things that we have yet to discover or have fully understand or taken grasp of until this very day.